So what happens when you're an insecure, triggered, hypersensitive person who can't debate and can only resort to personal attacks when you're on a call-in show where you have total control of what goes, what gets aired, and you have a button to hang up on people and to hold people and stuff like that. When you're on a forum where you don't have that kind of power, you have to resort to censorship, and that's what Matt Dillahunty did. So I made a video about him criticizing some of his abhorrent behavior and criticizing some of the stupid positions that he has that are illogical and anti-free speech. And well, the proof that he's anti-free speech is that what just happened. So he got like a whole bunch of his fanboys to mass flag my previous video under the auspices of cyberbullying and harassment. So I'm assuming that like one of the reasons why like YouTube took it down is because I called him fat. So I guess you can't call people fat even when they are, and that's just like a physical fact. Um, but you can have videos where people slander. You can have videos where people post racist, white supremacist garbage. You can post videos that are extremely homophobic and transphobic. You can have all kinds of like horrible, bigoted, slanderous videos on YouTube. And YouTube has been known for platforming well-known white supremacists like Sargon of Akkad, Ben Shapiro, um, Steven Crowder, all these scumbags. But when I call someone fat, then that goes over the line. And of course, I'm going to point out the hypocrisy that Matt Dillahunty routinely insults people, calling them idiots, morons, other kinds of names and things like that. So, like, I guess, like, body shaming is off limits for him. You're not allowed to say anything about a person's body because he himself is fat. But you can insult someone's mind. I mean, can we call that brain shaming? Can we call that mind shaming? But yeah, he's so insecure he can't debate, so he just blocks people. And then when he can't block people on an open forum like YouTube, he gets people to abuse the flagging system to do that. All right, so instead of I won't call him fat constantly anymore. However, I will critique his points cogently. In fact, this will give me a better opportunity to better critique some of the stuff that he has said. So let's just get right into it. Let me see if I can find the post here. Trying to see if this is the one. Yeah, I think this is it. Let me see if I can make this a little bit smaller so we can get it all in there. Okay, make it a little bit smaller. Okay, so to recap very, very quickly, basically someone said God doesn't exist. Okay? And then Matt Dillahunty jumped on his ass saying, you're wrong, you can't say God doesn't exist, uh, blah, blah, blah. And like, this is like one of his mantras. Like, for some reason, you can't ever say God doesn't exist in his mind. And like other people, like he's influential because he has this platform where he can spout his gibberish all he wants. But he's gotten other people to repeat this mantra, which is nonsense. Of course, you can say God doesn't exist. It's covered under free speech, and I would also add that it's an opinion. Now, whether or not you have to prove it depends on the context of what's going on here. Now, if you're trying to convince someone of a position, yes, I do think that you should prove this. With that said, uh, this has been proven. Like, you can have proof that God doesn't exist. Now, Matt Dillahunty in the past has also invoked something called an equivocation fallacy, where he incorrectly assumes that the word proof means you have demonstrated something to absolute certainty, and that's not true. Now, the word proof is used in mathematics. However, like the way it's used there is to a very high degree of certainty, because the system is known. Um, and so in mathematics, you can prove things to close to absolute certainty, maybe absolute certainty. Actually, you know what? It is absolute certainty in mathematics. However, Matt Dillahunty incorrectly assumes that just because that's how it's used there, then that's how it's used everywhere, which is not true. That's an equivocation fallacy. You can prove things to a lower degree of certainty. It happens all the time. In criminal justice, you have to prove things. They use the word proof. In criminal justice, there is a burden of proof, and you have to prove things in a criminal trial beyond a reasonable doubt, or if it's a civil trial, um, you have to prove things beyond the preponderance of the evidence, lower standard of proof. But there's still proofs. Now, when we're talking about a proof, do you do you need to prove like do you need to say it in your tweets every single time, or is there like a video you can refer to, or like a written statement somewhere which gives the proof, and then you could just refer back to it? I think that's fine. Once something has been established and there's a pretty good proof of it, I don't think you need to demonstrate it every single damn time. That's the other thing. So, so Matt Dillahunty is ranting about how you can't say, God doesn't exist, and then I say, no, he's not wrong. It's perfectly acceptable to say God doesn't exist. It's his opinion. We have opinions all the time. It can be proven for certain definitions to a reasonable certainty, but it doesn't even have to be. Freedom of speech, no one has to provide proof for an opinion. So what does Matt Dillahunty say? He says he is wrong if you make a claim that comes with a burden of proof, period. No, 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 you idiot. There is no universal force that compels someone to provide proof. Okay? We have freedom of speech. Yes, you can say God doesn't exist. How are you going to make him provide proof? What, you going to beat him up? Where's the universal force? Where's the law that forces him to provide proof for anyone? There is none. You can have opinions. For example, I think Matt Dillahunty is an idiot. I don't have to prove that. That is my opinion. Now, it also works another way. So Matt Dillahunty is under the mistaken assumption, like he has a confusion about the default position, and he has made this argument before, but it's amazing how little he understands about the default position. So he uses the courtroom analogy. Um, the default position is that everyone is innocent until proven guilty. And that needs to be stressed. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty. And that is assumed to be true by default without any evidence. Okay? The prosecution has to prove guilt. Okay? The defendant doesn't even have to open his mouth. Period. To use one of his lame lines. Um, so this applies across the board. So whatever the default position is, that represents the natural state of the universe. So something that like diverges from the natural state of the universe, that needs to be demonstrated. So, for example, like if I'm sure, guess what? Murders happen every day, right? So someone yesterday was murdered. Now, I could accuse Matt Dillahunty of being responsible for that murder, and he could justifiably say, "No, I'm not. I'm innocent." Is that unreasonable to say without any evidence? No. No, of course not. I would never take that away from someone. Of course, you can always proclaim your innocence because that is the default position. No, I know someone died yesterday. Yeah, people die every day. Some random person died. I could accuse anyone of that, and then all of a sudden they have to demonstrate their innocence in order to say that they're innocent? No. No, that's the default position. That is the null hypothesis. The alternate hypothesis is what you're trying to prove, what you have to prove. And that is that someone is guilty of murder. And that applies to God as well. So the alternate hypothesis is that God does exist. The null hypothesis is that God does not exist. And that is the default position, and that is assumed to be true by default without any evidence. Okay? So that's how it works. You don't even have to provide proof. Now, with that said, I actually do think there is proof that God doesn't exist. For certain definitions, you have to actually define what God is first. But for the definition that Christians are talking about, Jews are talking about, Muslims, yeah, that is actually a falsifiable thing because we can actually demonstrate that those definitions of God cannot actually exist because it contradicts what we already know to be true about the universe. So let's move on here. He becomes really childish and really stupid. Um, let's see. So yeah, here he's like white knighting for some random person, some person who has a huge anger problem, very irascible, like seems to have some kind of mental illness because she's going off on this horrible tirade, vitriolic tirade of anger. And one of the symptoms of mental illness is prolonged periods of anger, which also Matt Dillahunty has demonstrated. So what this guy is saying is her response was in regard to me making a claim, which I did, and then this person says says C ignored this twat. It's a troll slash bot. 6 followers in 17 months. Obviously, no one gives a fuck about anything this prick has to say. Probably a backup account for John. So I don't know who John is. Um, Being petty over followers. Yeah, followers has nothing to do with intelligence. I could have 0 followers and I can still outdebate you any day because all your debating arguments involve ad hominem fallacies because you're insecure and obviously you have some kind of mental illness where you have prolonged periods of anger that you can't get over because of some kind of problem that you have. Yeah. And Matt Dillahunty, he's like a weird, thirsty creep, honestly. And he will white knight for girls in the hopes of getting laid. Um, and he's admitted to, like paying for hookers before. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me that his motives are to, just like kind of defend white knight for girls online in the hopes of one day getting laid. So I say you're telling other people what to do now. You're as pathetic as you're stupid. Yeah, like so. What she's trying to do is she's trying to tell other people to ignore my arguments. Um, yeah, because she's incapable of arguing with me. And then Matt Dillahunty says, "You sure you're not the stupid one?" Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm not the stupid one, Matt, because you're the one who is white knighting for some girl in the hopes of you getting laid. That's pathetic, dude. Okay. And this guy has been stupid on many occasions. Besides what I just covered here in refuting his bad, stupid arguments, he's been called out for his poor dietary choices. He eats meat, and he defends him like vegetarians and vegans have criticized Matt Dillahunty for eating meat. And Matt Dillahunty defended his decision to eat meat with very, very bad rationale. Like people pointed out, like the how horrific animals are slaughtered, and he just ignores it, saying it's not morally virtuous. He makes this distinction between doing something moral and being morally virtuous. Uh, what's the distinction between those two, and why aren't you? Why don't you strive to be morally virtuous if that is, uh, if you're making a distinction between those two? Basically, what he wants to say is that he eats meat because it tastes good and he's doing something irrational, but he's too insecure to admit his failings and his weaknesses. Look, I eat meat. I don't make any bones about it. And I don't try to rationalize it. I say, yeah, this is one place where I'm doing something that is probably not moral, but I still do it because I I enjoy the taste of it, and I don't have the self-restraint to stop doing it. Just be honest about it, Matt Dillahunty. Instead, he's so insecure he can't ever admit his weaknesses. Instead, he projects his weaknesses onto other people by constantly attacking other people, calling them stupid and idiots. So I will show you, I think, just one more tweet that he made that was a real butthurt, angry tweet. So I pointed out that that idiot from before who can't debate and has like this like weird like prolonged periods of anger, like bad temperament. I say, Lel, this is what happens when you have mental problems. Anger problems can't debate and have an IQ in the double digits. Yeah, you block people. People who can't debate, that's what they do. And then what does Matt Dillahunty do? The White Knight? Yep, that's what happens. People wind up blocking you, just as I'm doing. Yeah, that's what Matt Dillahunty does because he can't debate people unless he's in a position of power and authority because he doesn't want to give that up. If he's on a level playing field with someone, he'll get steamrolled in a debate. Okay, and he's done some really shitty things. Like Matt Dillahunty is actually a scumbag, but he's not a scumbag for this interaction. Believe it or not, he's a scumbag because he defended a transphobe. There's this transphobe whose name was Rationality Rules, and he made like a transphobic video. And the people at the ACA, the Atheist Community in Austin, the place where he works, didn't like it. And initially, they issued a denouncement of this transphobe, and then they had to retract it because Matt Dillahunty cried and bitched a lot. And so then they retracted it. And then there was an exodus of people like Jen Peeples, Tracy Harris, like all these people from the ACA, the Atheist Experience, who've been there for years and years, over a decade. They all left, all because Matt Dillahunty has a hard on for this guy that I never even heard of before, Rationality Rules, who's just like a transphobe who made an unbelievably offensive video. Um, and yeah, Matt Dillahunty sold out his friends and some of the most rational people for this bigot. So that was one shitty thing he did. And then the second shitty thing that he does is he had the atheist community of Discord, the ACA's Discord, is moderated by horrible racists, um, passive racists, and he has done nothing about it. I made a video about that. I'm going to post links in the description so you guys can check that out for more details because I'm not going to get into that in here. But yeah, um, he has problems, man. He has major anger problems, and he lashes out constantly. You know, like he even like there was this one time Thunderfoot made a video exposing him. Thunderfoot's also like a piece of shit for a lot of reasons, but Thunderfoot like actually pointed out some crappy things that Matt Dillahunty did, where like people disagreed with him about the elevator gate, Gamergate crap a long, long time ago, and then Matt Dillahunty, uh, basically said, if anyone disagrees with you, I'm gonna block you on Facebook. Yeah, that's the kind of guy Matt Dillahunty is. He has problems, dude. Anyway, that's all I gotta say. See ya.